Welcome, everybody. Oops, it sounds like we have some background noise. We can make sure we have everybody on mute that's in the background. Thank you. Welcome. We'll let everybody join in to the webinar. I'm Mark Tompkins. I'm the president of the German American Chamber of Commerce of the Midwest. And so just give us a minute or two here and we'll go ahead and get our luncheon started. What a punctual group. It's one good thing about being around the German American Chamber. Our audience and our staff and everybody like to be really punctual. So. Even in COVID times when people are working from home office and have the kids running around and dogs and everything else. But well, we'll go ahead and get rolling in a minute here with the presentation and the start of these. I think quite a few of you have joined us before. Today we have a very special topic, especially for our Michigan audience, with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation in our virtual luncheon today. And obviously Michigan's been at the forefront of a lot of the national headlines, and actually the really good news is the Michigan curve in terms of infection rate is one of the great examples that we have in the US right now, with the numbers getting steadily better day by day. So that's good news for Michigan. But maybe we'll go ahead and throw up or give a quick introduction to our team that are working here in the background. For those of you in Michigan, many of you know Markus Wirth. Markus is the head of our Michigan office and manager of consulting services over there. For the real live events, you can't miss him. He's always the tallest guy in the room. But Markus is a great resource for connecting to our membership and to our resources in Michigan. In the background here is Franziska Hennig. Franzi runs our events throughout the Midwest, so she's the one coordinating our background here for this virtual luncheon. And then Matt Hoppe is our manager of member engagement. So feel free to reach out to our whole team. They'd love to hear from you and love to help you get connected to our broader network as well. A few things about the business luncheon and guidance as we go forward. We're going to keep all the attendees muted during the presentation. We got a little bit of background noise now, but we'll make sure we keep the presentation clear for everybody listening. If you have a question throughout the presentation, there's a question box on your sidebar. Go ahead and type in your questions into the box. And then once we get to the Q&A session, we'll get you there. You can raise your hand as well. We'll do our best. We'd love to have everybody that can ask their questions in person, so be ready to unmute and join the conversation when it's time for Q&A, and we'll bring you in there. Certainly, if you just want to type your question, we can ask those questions as well. And then once we do get to that Q&A session, go ahead and briefly introduce yourself before you ask the question. At the end of the webinar, at the end of our luncheon, we'll have a quick survey that we'll send out to everyone. So love to get your feedback on that. There's one more important survey that we're working on as well. This is our global AHK World Business Outlook. And we look for responses from 90 countries around the world, and the DIHK in Berlin then utilizes that information in all of their press work when they're working with the Bundestag to work on Germany's response to the current situation. And unfortunately, the US is usually underrepresented in that survey. So you should have gotten on Monday, or at least all of our members on Monday got a mailing about that survey. And then it'll also go out in one or two more mailings here in the next week. So please click through on that link and make sure we get your views represented in that global outlook. So with that, I think we're about ready to get rolling on the presentation and get ready for our presenters. You already see on your screen, we have Josh Hundt, who's the Chief Business Development Officer for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And really, he's going to talk about the state's leadership in enabling long-term economic prosperity for small businesses, for communities, entrepreneurs during COVID. And also, we want to learn more about what the state's doing to reopen the economy over the coming weeks and months. And then many of you already know Vlatko Tomek-Povas. Vlatko's been very involved with the chamber over the years and also serves on our Michigan Advisory Council. So with that, unless there's something else I'm forgetting, we'll jump right into the presentation. So let me get that queued up for you, Josh.
All right.
And we'll share that one. Oops, I got to get the sharing right. Oops. Of course, now it's going slow right when you want to share it. Here we go.
Of course.
And your beautiful presentation. Here we go. Wait for the program to respond. Somehow GoToMeeting doesn't like me right now. You know what, Francie, do you want to share that for us?
I was going to come in and say, like, I can share it too. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, there you go. You know what? Now it's letting me do it. So, oops, if you want to go ahead, Francie, you're on there, so I'll let you take over. There we go.
There we go.
Looks great.
Okay. Josh, the screen is yours. Francie will show the presentation, and I look forward to hearing what's going on in Michigan right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark, and thank you, Francie, and thank you to the whole team and the whole German American Chamber of Commerce team. It's an honor to be with all of you virtually today, and I know that I have spent time with many of you before in speeches and at events as well when we were in person, and we look forward to that opportunity to be back in person soon as well. This partnership that we have with the German American Chamber is just a wonderful partnership, and I think a testament to how we can all come together and do great things for partnership between the German business community and the Michigan business community, and how we can do great things together to support the economy. The partnership that Michigan and the German business community has together has been forged over many years and is incredibly important and has resulted in increased collaboration between Germany and Michigan, including opportunities like we have today and what we hope will be continued long-term growth in the relationship and great opportunities for investments and trade between Michigan and Germany. If we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. And so what we wanted to talk about today is really Michigan's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to hit on Michigan's overall presence in the globe as a center of innovation. Around the globe, Michigan is known for what it can make. We're known for our skilled workforce and an unparalleled work ethic. During the COVID-19 outbreak, this legacy of resilience, innovation, and Midwestern ingenuity is on display for the world to see once again as businesses, workers, and citizens across the state step up to help combat the spread of the virus by creating in Michigan or expanding in Michigan a center of innovation. Once the outbreak of COVID-19 first hit Michigan in early March, Governor Whitmer and her administration moved quickly to take decisive action and necessary measures to respond to the public health emergency that quickly took hold in Michigan. Although Michigan is the 10th largest state in terms of population, in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were at one point third in the nation in number of deaths from COVID-19, forcing Governor Whitmer and her administration to make quick actions in response to the rapid spread of the virus in the state. Due to the necessary restrictions that were placed on many businesses as Michigan residents began staying home over the last 3 months, in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19, many small businesses, automakers, supply chain manufacturers, and even distilleries are now retooling and pivoting their operations to do what they can to help support our healthcare workers and front lines in fighting this virus while also continuing to pay their employees. Between our state's traditional manufacturing expertise and our core of world-class medical device companies, which is ranked in the top 10 nationally, Michigan has been well suited to be the center of innovation to support the response efforts across the country to the COVID-19 outbreak. And I would also add that, as Mark mentioned earlier, these quick actions by the governor and the responses by our business community and the people across the state have really begun to help, not just begun, but have flattened the curve in Michigan to a point where we are now, for the last week, seeing our lowest amount of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths from the COVID-19 pandemic since it began in early March. And this is a testament to the resiliency of the Michigan people, the quick action that was taken by the governor, and a strong healthcare and economic response that was taken by leaders in our state government and our local communities. I would also add that this action that was taken by the administration and then taken by the Michigan Economic Development Corporation as a response to the economy was very consistent with the MEDC strategic plan that we established in October of 2019. It was a strategic plan that was based on a vision over the next 5 years to make Michigan one of the most resilient, most equitable, and fastest growing economies in the state. And this COVID-19 pandemic made all three of those goals around growth from the recession that was caused by the pandemic, and then also and especially the need for resiliency and equity in the economy became even more important today as a result of COVID-19 than they were in 2019 when we established the strategic plan. This focus on equity in terms of support for disadvantaged areas, for disadvantaged populations, for our urban cores and our rural communities are all important steps in terms of equity across the state to support all 83 counties of Michigan in terms of the response. And then the resiliency is already something that we're seeing by the way our small businesses, our small and large manufacturers, and others in the business community, as well as communities themselves and the citizens of those communities, have shown a strong resilience in terms of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic ramifications of that, and now looking forward to a runway to the recovery are all important items of resiliency that we have shown that will help Michigan lead to the third tenet of that strategic plan vision of business growth, where we feel the strong health and economic measures that were taken by the governor and by our economic development organizations across the state will help Michigan be a leader in terms of the recovery, both from a health and economic standpoint. And with all of that in mind, what I'll now do is talk a little bit about some of the steps that we have taken throughout the time in response to the pandemic, and talk a little bit of some of the highlights of the 14 programs the MEDC established to help with the economic response to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we could go to the next slide, please. One of the first things one of the first programs that we established in response to the global pandemic was this was an expansion of the state's ongoing Pure Michigan Business Connect matchmaking program. What the Pure Michigan Business Connect program is a program that has been in place for about a decade that connects buyers and suppliers of products in many different supply chains across the state with partners like DTE Energy, Consumers Energy, and many of the large automakers in the state to buy more of a Michigan supply chain to continue to boost the supply chain here in Michigan and to continue to see the growth of our suppliers in many different industries. This is a program that over the last decade has brought $10 billion of new contracts to Michigan businesses in those many industries and has helped save or grow countless jobs as a result of that ongoing investment into our supply chains, and additionally has helped make Michigan a more competitive place for businesses to grow because of the strong connections in the supply chain in many different industries. Utilizing that pillar of success in terms of matchmaking, we launched a fully online procurement platform under the Pure Michigan Business Connect programming to assist suppliers of critical health and human services across a broad range of categories, including municipalities, healthcare systems, and others in accessing supplies and products as they responded to the COVID-19 outbreak. Through the platform, we received more than 650 requests for needs from companies and service providers, as well as 1,700 different supplier submissions to support those healthcare providers and municipalities in need of critical PPE in the early days of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Utilizing the PMBC virtual procurement platform, PMBC connected Barber Packaging, a Bangor, Michigan-based industry leader in designing and manufacturing packaging systems with the state government. As a direct result of this connection, Barber Packaging is now supporting the need for PPE throughout Michigan by fulfilling orders for more than 50,000 face shields. The partnership helps ensure the frontline medical workers are properly protected and helps mitigate the spread of COVID-19. We are now building off the success of the early days of the platform, supporting municipalities and healthcare workers by transitioning now to connect businesses in need of accessing PPE and other medical supplies that are necessary to ensure the health and safety of their employees and customers as Michigan begins the recovery and begins to reopen business establishments across the state. This includes products like face shields, face masks, gloves, goggles, and other materials necessary to ensure the health and safety of employees and customers. This portal is open to companies of all sizes and industries and for all scales of PPE demand. To date, more than 2,600 Michigan companies with procurement needs have accessed the site, as well as over 1,900 companies that have signed on to supply those needed products. The PMBC COVID-19 procurement platform is a key part of our efforts to create programs and repurpose existing resources to support companies and workers on the front line of COVID-19 while providing economic relief for the recovery ahead across the state. I'd encourage all of you to go take a look at more information about this program at michigan.org/PPE. Again, that's michigan.org/PPE. Also utilizing this platform, in April, the MEDC announced grantees for a newly created Pure Michigan Business Connect COVID-19 Emergency Access and Retooling Grants Program. Through this program, we dedicated $1 million to provide grants to support Michigan businesses with eligible expenses looking to immediately retool their manufacturing of critical health and human service supplies in response to COVID-19. One example of a company is Tentcraft Incorporated, a Traverse City, Michigan-based company that had never manufactured products for the healthcare or medical industry before, but was looking to retool in response to ongoing demand. After receiving a MEDC Pure Michigan Business Connect Access and Retooling Grant, the company was able to pivot towards these new products, keeping employees on the job and critically helping produce PPE products needed by frontline healthcare workers. Through the grant to Tentcraft Incorporated and other companies across the state, we are helping businesses that just a few months ago were making tents, engines, and hydraulic filter cartridges, pivot to developing drive-through tents for COVID-19 screening, respirators, surgical masks for healthcare workers, and other needed products in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As small and medium-sized businesses across the state are negatively impacted by COVID-19 outbreak, existing programs through the MEDC's Capital Access Program opens additional access to private lender financing, providing small businesses in Michigan access to capital that might not otherwise be available. Any business that has been affected by COVID-19 is eligible to receive support through the collateral support and loan participation programs. The collateral support program helps to enable borrowers to acquire the necessary financing that would otherwise be unavailable due to collateral shortfall. For example, we have previously, over the last couple of months, supported the cartridge manufacturer National Filters in Harbor Beach, Michigan, which is helping them purchase machinery and equipment necessary to increase surgical mask production from 250 per day to 7,200 masks per hour through our Capital Access Program's collateral support program. Thanks to the support, the company will be able to begin producing N95 respirators at a rate of 2,000 per hour, and it is also rehiring 16 employees who had previously been laid off due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Additional information about the eligibility requirements for our Capital Access Program, as well as other programs that we have established in response to this outbreak, or ongoing programs that we have that will help in response to the outbreak, can be seen at our website at michiganbusiness.org/COVID-19. One other program that I wanted to highlight that Michigan utilized over the last couple of months in support of the COVID-19 outbreak is the Michigan Small Business Relief Program. This is a program that was set up on March 19th, just 3 days after the governor's necessary action for the temporary closure of many of our Main Street businesses on March 16th. What the program did is it provided $20 million in very low interest loans and grants for small businesses across the state to support working capital needs such as utilities, paying employees, rent, mortgages, and other costs that a company has in the course of doing business. We specifically targeted those businesses that were small businesses that were anchors to the community on our main streets and our commercial corridors. Over the course of this program so far, we have supported over 3,100 businesses and retained over 11,000 jobs in all 83 counties of the state. These are companies that have been able to stay in business and continue to be important to the vibrancy of our communities as a result of this grant that was set up and put into place prior to federal programs such as the Paycheck Protection Program, and provided a critical bridge to many small businesses across the state in the early days of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we go to the next slide, please. Businesses across the state are joining together to use all resources available, whether they are financial or otherwise, to support the health and safety of healthcare workers and business employees and their families during this unprecedented public health crisis. From donating supplies to meet the critical needs to retooling and repurposing their facilities, businesses in many different industries continue to provide a united response in the face of this public health emergency. Overall, the Michigan programming has supported over 3,100 businesses and retained over 12,500 jobs in all 83 counties, while also critically supporting the manufacturing of 5.5 million PPE units here in Michigan. And that's highlighted all through different programs here in the state, such as those that have been mentioned under the Capital Access Tools or the Pure Michigan Business Connect platform or the Michigan Small Business Relief Platform or other programs that we've established that have provided support for our tech startup ecosystem, that have provided support for our Main Street businesses through the Match on Main program, that have provided matchmaking, and that have provided matching funds for small businesses that have raised money from local citizens, as well as several other programs that we were looking at that continue to support the response efforts from COVID-19 while also continuing to focus on the overall strategic goals of the MEDC for the equitable, resilient, and fast-growing economy in Michigan. And so that Michigan can be a model of the recovery, both in terms of the health pandemic and the economic response efforts that took place here in Michigan in the first 3 months since the COVID-19 outbreak began, and that will continue as we focus on the recovery ahead. If we could go to the next slide, please. Many different German-based businesses are also driving innovative solutions in Michigan in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Based out of Wyandotte, BASF Corporation is producing thousands of gallons of hand sanitizer called Hand Clasp. The organization donated the first 1,000 gallons to the Henry Ford Health System in Southeast Michigan and distributed the rest of the other healthcare systems in Michigan, Texas, Louisiana, Canada, Mexico, and more. Another example is Henkel North America, which is donating 1.2 million units of essential household hygiene and personal hygiene products, including to places such as St. Leo's Soup Kitchen in Detroit. And to date, Henkel North America has donated $500,000 and 1.2 million units of these essential products to businesses and healthcare systems in need across Michigan. And another example is Bosch, which has its US headquarters in Farmington Hills and is developing a COVID-19 detection test, which aims to diagnose the virus in under 2.5 hours. Bosch planned for this new test to become commercially available in Germany and then hit international markets later. These innovative technologies and generous contributions have been vitally important in our fight against this unprecedented outbreak. And we are thankful for the continued partnership and support of the German business community during these uncertain times. And I would add that I think that these companies such as Henkel, BASF, Bosch, and many others continue to provide the example of the important partnership between the German business community and Michigan in terms of continued FDI and continued trade, as the partnership and relationship continues to be more important now than ever before in terms of growing the relationship and growing opportunities for continued trade and investment. And so joining me on this webinar today is my colleague who serves as our Europe Trade Promotion Director and does a lot of work in Germany and is a member of many organizations with all of you, Vladko Tomek-Mobis, who has played a critical role over the last several years in terms of continuing to build and grow the partnership between Michigan and Germany for trade and investment, and will continue to play an important role as we look to continue to build partnerships moving forward. Vladko and I are also joined today by Drew Coleman, who's our Director of Business Attraction. Drew, Vladko, myself, and others in the organization at the MEDC continue to be focused on growing the partnership between the MEDC and the German American Chamber of Commerce, as well as, and importantly, the relationship between the state of Michigan and Germany for important trade and investment opportunities. And Vladko will be joining me on video after this presentation during the question and answer portion of the presentation as well. And we can both talk about in more detail whatever questions you have. If we can go to the next slide, please. So based on the great investment that's taken place from our German companies here in the state of Michigan, as well as many of our manufacturers and small businesses, from where we stand today, much has changed over the last 13 weeks since the pandemic began to have an impact in Michigan. And we are now seeing promising signs of recovery throughout the state as our efforts up until this point have helped slow the spread of COVID-19 and have in turn helped save countless lives. Michigan now has flattened the curve and has seen our best week in terms of the healthcare situation from COVID-19 since early March over the last 7 days. We are now at a point where we are beginning to re-engage our economy through Governor Whitmer's MI Safe Start Plan with retailers, restaurants, bars, children's camps, barbershops, and nail salons being opened already this month. We also witnessed the stay-home order being lifted throughout Michigan earlier this month as well, and are now gathering in larger groups, both indoors and outside, while continuing to keep in effect important safety protocols and social distancing measures. These are tremendous signs for the progress that is happening in Michigan and are only possible thanks to the many sacrifices that were made by small business owners, communities, entrepreneurs, workers, and all citizens throughout the state over the last 3 months. And now, as we are beginning to reopen and re-engage our economy, businesses will need to protect their employees by carefully monitoring them for symptoms, instituting an array of social distancing techniques for the workplace, strengthening sanitation and hygiene, and providing recommended protective equipment like masks, face shields, and other items, which the state is working to support through the previously mentioned Pure Michigan Business Connect COVID-19 procurement platform. This re-engaging of the economy in a smart, safe, and diligent way will help Michigan continue to lead the way in terms of the response that we have shown so far by flattening the curve in Michigan and seeing economic growth and healthcare recovery happen in Michigan in the months ahead. If we go to the next slide, please. And then I wanted to wrap up today prior to heading into the question and answer session by walking through a few different additional resources that are available so that you can continue to see what Michigan is looking at in terms of the recovery ahead and programming that we will put in place to ensure that we are supporting our Michigan businesses for the recovery, and so that Michigan can be one of the leading states in terms of that growth, equity, and resilience as the economy moves forward from the COVID-19 pandemic. Access to additional resources can be seen by visiting the website of the MEDC at michigan.org/COVID-19. Again, that's michigan.org/COVID-19. This page will also be updated as additional federal and state resources become available for small businesses, communities, entrepreneurs, and large businesses, and will also highlight existing MEDC programs that businesses may want to be aware of. While there, you can also sign up for our regular COVID-19 e-blasts to receive information and updates from the MEDC in real time. You can also visit michigan.gov/coronavirus for valuable resources for employers and workers, including information for both employers and employees on unemployment insurance and other important programs, to sign up for regular COVID-19 updates, and to stay informed on the governor's latest efforts to mitigate the impact of the COVID-19 virus on Michigan's residents and the economy. And I wanted to end today by highlighting how many of these different responses that we've made over the last 3 months have been a testament to this center of innovation that Michigan has created in terms of our expertise in manufacturing and technology, where through the skilled workforce, Michigan is the best place for a place to choose to locate or grow their business, as it is the only place where you can have such a strong skilled trades talent, as well as the highest concentration of engineers in the country, which brings together a unique opportunity in Michigan for both headquarters, research and development, and manufacturing operations. And then lastly, I would hit on the fact that through that arsenal of innovation that has been created and through that focus that we've had on continuing to build our research and development, headquarters, and manufacturing operations, just last week it was announced that in the CEO Magazine annual rankings, which is measured by a vote of the CEOs across the country in terms of the best states to do business, Michigan recently made the highest jump in any state has ever made, rising from the 32nd ranked state last year to the 13th ranked state this year because of the strong workforce, the low cost of doing business, the positive regulatory environment, and the abundant talent that we have in many different fields are all factors that continue to drive Michigan's growth in that ranking and others as the best place to do business, and will continue to be important as we lay the foundation for the runway on the recovery ahead. I want to thank Mark and the entire German American Chamber of Commerce team for having myself and Vlatko today. And Vlatko and I now are happy to answer any questions from Mark or the rest of the audience.
Well, I'll go ahead and jump back in here too, and there's Vlatko, so great. Maybe let's just start with one, and then actually I have probably a little poll we want to put out to our audience to see where they're coming from. But go ahead and throw your questions in, raise your hand if you're in the audience. Maybe the first point is, let's go back to the beginning of the pandemic, and what were some of the early steps that Governor Whitmer has taken to battle the COVID-19 pandemic? And how did that set us up for where we are now, where Michigan's got some of the highest drops in the numbers, where Michigan started very early on being fairly heavily hit by the pandemic?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That's a great question. And the first steps that the governor took were steps to be fully focused on the health and safety of all 10 million Michiganders across the state. And that's been something that the governor has continued to focus on every day since this outbreak began. It was quick and decisive action that was important to continue to, or to begin to initially slow the spread, and then ultimately bend the curve, and now to see Michigan as one of the best performing states in terms of the recovery. And it's important that we continue to keep that diligence now as we begin to reopen the economy. The other decisive action that the governor took was a clear understanding that these necessary actions were going to have an obvious economic impact on our businesses in the state. And launching programs like the 14 programs that the MEDC has instituted as quickly and thoughtfully as we did to help as many Michiganders as possible was another decisive action the governor and her administration took as well. The launch of the Small Business Relief Program, essentially within a mere hours, 72 hours from the first closures of establishments in the state, was a sign to the business community across the state that while the governor was fully focused on the healthcare and health and safety impacts in the state, we were also going to ensure that we were doing everything that we could to support our small businesses in all 83 counties of the state during this challenging time as well. And having a program that was announced, approved, up and running within hours of the closure of those establishments, and then having the first money being distributed to small businesses by March 31st, well in advance of other federal and other federal programs that came in later, provided a critical bridge for many of our Main Street businesses. And then lastly, I think the quick response that we had in terms of partnerships between the MEDC and the State Emergency Operations Center and other partners across state government in terms of ensuring that we had the proper PPE equipment for our municipalities, hospitals, and frontline workers were critically important to ensure that we were, again, going back to the focus on health and safety by making sure that we had the necessary equipment to protect those frontline workers. And so it was a thoughtful approach, that was fully focused on the health and safety of Michiganders, while also keep an eye on supporting small businesses to be prepared for the recovery that is now to come.
Okay. I mean, talk a little bit about shifting of resources. Vlatko, I know you're out usually talking to companies all over the world or all over Europe and engaging a lot in person with companies. Obviously, you can't do that now, and MEDC's role and resources have shifted to support corporations, small businesses. How did you do that? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mark. And I think it's a twofold answer that I'll briefly touch on that really comes from what Josh was actually just talking about in terms of our quick response. I think what we did as an organization was to listen to the business community. So Governor Whitmer did form an alliance, so to say, with the neighboring states, and a lot of best practices were shared with Ohio and then vice versa from the University of Michigan to our neighboring states. So that would be just something I would add to Josh's response. And then the other piece would also be we have a lot of groups in Michigan that are very active that speak on behalf of the business community that represent corporates in Michigan. I mean, I'm thinking of a group called Business Leaders for Michigan, which shared an initiative to standardize best practices on behalf of the state. And out of that communication and development, we were able to develop a guidelines that a lot of companies are implementing in Michigan. Now, that also shifts. That shift also enabled us to actively promote our response and our work going forward. I mean, with Europe's lockdown, which is hopefully going to be lifted here June 15th and then July 1st, with that initiative, we have kind of changed our perspective and outreach going forward. So we have done a lot more of these informational webinars with industry groups in Europe. We've done a lot of these webinars with different government organizations throughout Europe to really keep the communication and dialogue going. I think what I've noticed, at least from the European portfolio, there hasn't been any drop off in terms of interest or projects going forward. I mean, even with your team, I mean, Marcus and I have just recently been in touch with 2 German companies that are actively evaluating the US market in Michigan to continue their investment, to promote their internationalization strategy. So I would just add that this entire pandemic has brought us a lot closer, even though it's in a virtual platform, which is an interesting kind of feedback.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I don't think I've had as many international web conferences, Zooms, however you want to phrase it, as I've had in the last 3 months.
Yeah, for sure. But again, I think it's just the new reality going forward. But in terms of the overall, portfolio value, when we look at Germany and investing into the U.S. market, it's still just as strong as it was before. And at least for Michigan, for our state, it's the leader when it comes to foreign direct investment. So we don't anticipate that to drop off anytime. I think what we're noticing is kind of a new platform to go forward with our businesses until we can resume some type of normal again.
Yeah. Well, let's get the audience involved a little bit. We'll run a quick poll, but I think, Vlatko, you make a great point. Michigan's coming off record numbers of investment into this environment. So, with the data that Josh already shared about jumping up the rankings, that's certainly backed up by the last couple of years of investment numbers too. So not a bad position to go into a crisis when you're already in a position of strength. So with that, let's jump in to a poll. So everybody who's on there, we're going to ask a question whether, first of all, is your company located in the state of Michigan? And I can see the audience on there, and we have a fair mix. So go ahead and jump in your answers on there. We'll collect responses for a few seconds here. Go ahead and click through. There we go. We're getting a bunch of people answering. One or two more answers. We'll wait a second and then we'll close it off. If you haven't voted yet, now's your chance. Okay, we'll go ahead and close it. We got nice round numbers on there. Oops, there we go. 75%. Kind of fun we hit the round number, are based in Michigan. So we have a little bit of an audience outside of Michigan today too. So let's jump through and do our next poll. Is, do you work for an SME? So, or are you at a large corporation, a nonprofit, or something else? So if I were voting, I'd get to throw nonprofit, but I think that's one of the great things about our network is you really see the variety of who comes in there. We're seeing them come in. Go ahead and let everybody finish off. Okay, we can go ahead and close the poll. I think now we've got over half the people voted. And we have a strong nonprofit audience. I think those are a bunch of our economic developers on the call as well. Probably a couple of our staff, and then the small mediums, and we don't have the large corporations on today. So how about that? And almost a quarter, none of the above. So how's that?
A little different today.
Yeah, a little different, but spreading the message out through a lot of the channels. And here's maybe the important one is, have you worked with or heard of MEDC? Well, hopefully everybody's at least heard of MEDC because you just got the, but if you didn't hear of MEDC before you saw this webinar, you can click that too. I think you guys are going to like the response here in a second. So
it's great. Our marketing team is eagerly waiting. Our marketing team is eagerly
waiting. I'm teasing you just a little bit here, Vodka. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the poll. And roughly 2/3 have already worked with MEDC, so that's a great testament to your guys' work. And the other third's at least heard of you, or they wouldn't be on here today. So I think there's some opportunities then for the ones that haven't worked with you yet. But there's good response from our audience. I'll throw it open for audience questions now too. Does anybody want to throw a question in the chat or speak up and ask your question? While we're waiting for the question, I'll ask one more of my own. We talked a lot about what's happened in the last 3 months, guys. What are the priorities now for MEDC going forward, particularly new ones in this new reality we're in? Josh, maybe if you want to start with that.
Yeah, I can start off, and then Vladko, if you want to add anything on. First and foremost, and I know I mentioned our strategic plan that we put in place around a vision of equity, resiliency, and a fast-growing state. Those priorities remain in place today as they were in October of 2019 when we put that together. And I would say, I think in many ways, those are actually more important priorities today than they were even when we put this in place. It was also a strategy that we put together through a very thoughtful year-long process where one of the projects that we undertook as a part of that strategic planning process was scenario planning around the impacts of a recession and what types of programming would we need. And so we looked at programs that we would need, such as an expansion of the Pure Michigan Business Connect platform, the need for small business support, and other unique tools as well. And while, of course, no one could have predicted a recession of this type and for this reason, that was an example of the scenario planning as a part of our strategic planning process that didn't just go into planning for a rosy picture that we are always going to be at a low unemployment rate and a growing economy, but factoring in that at some point over the next 5 years, there was going to be a recession. And so from a strategy standpoint and the vision of what we want Michigan to be and what we continue to work towards, that remains entirely in place. We're also focused still on growing the primary industries that are going to boost job creation and boost investment in the state, industries that we've been strong at in the past and think we have an opportunity for in the future, industries like automotive and mobility, advanced manufacturing, engineering, design and development, medical device technology, research and development, and professional services, as we think Michigan is a great place for a headquarters or regional office as well. And so those continue to be primary drivers for us in terms of industries that we're targeting, both for our growing in the state or attracting into the state. And then another tactical opportunity that we're looking at is taking advantage of onshoring or reshoring opportunities as supply chains will be shifting as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the understanding that that's not all going to happen immediately, and nobody knows exactly what that's going to look like yet, but there is an expectation there will be some onshoring and reshoring back to the United States in a few different fields. And so that will be something that we will look at doing, and something that we'll look at in terms of especially bringing more investment into Michigan for multinational companies that perhaps already have a small presence in the state, and continue to make the case that Michigan is the best place for them to grow as they bring more work into the United States. So those are kind of a couple of different things that we're focused on, both at the high level strategy side of things, both then in terms of industries that we'll be targeting for growth opportunities, as well as a tactical example as something we'll look at doing as well. Vlatko, I don't know if there's anything you wanna add to that.
Yeah, Josh, that's a great response. Maybe I would just add the fact that Michigan is home to 415 German corporates, and that number can't be ignored. So pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, those corporates are here, and that's excluding restaurants, that's excluding hospitality and so forth. And those corporates are well represented in terms of the variety of industry going forward. So from my perspective, it's going to be crucial to work with the existing companies that are already here, but then also to make sure that industry is driving this whole policy side going forward, because we do hear mixed messaging from Washington, D.C. in terms of policy, what's going on with trade, what's going on with China, and just understanding the corporates have a global perspective. And that has been really showcased in this pandemic as we look how is a Bosch or a Brose adjusting to the different requirements that they're seeing in Michigan compared to Germany, compared to China. So having that understanding and making sure that their voices are heard is going to be crucial. So I don't see us dropping off or shifting gears going forward in terms of serving our German corporates in Michigan, and of course helping them diversify their supply chains, and then also welcoming new German companies into the US and obviously the state of Michigan.
Yeah, and I mentioned it before, Michigan's got a great track record here the last couple of years in terms of new investment from German corporates coming into the state. I know we appreciate our partnership with MEDC as the German American Chamber, and that's gone back for decades. So that partnership remains strong. I think if you get to the core of it, the companies, you already highlighted, number one, workforce. Detroit region has the highest concentration of engineers pretty much anywhere in the world. And then when you couple that with being a leader with MAT Squared program, the Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program, bringing German-style apprenticeships to all companies, just German companies. Over 2/3 of our companies in MAT Squared are non-German entities. So I think that's a great testament to the workforce investments the state has made to say, hey, we want to lead and be a leader out on the front end workforce too, because that's business of the future.
Yeah, I would just add to that really quick, Mark. It's interesting because a lot of states, a lot of countries will promote apprenticeship programs, right? And which is great. It's really vital to have those. And our administration, the governor administration, she's really actively promoting that. But I think what puts this program apart from others is the verification program. The fact that it's administered through the GACC, the fact that it's benchmarked against the actual program in Germany is what sets it apart. And I think that messaging gets lost when we talk to our friends from other states or other countries, because everybody likes to do apprenticeship programs. Unless they're verified, they're certified, and benchmarked, it's really, we're talking about oranges and apples here.
Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more on that one. And that's why we've loved the partnership, is really where the state has been active with it at the same time. The companies are driving the quality control on it. Hey, we want it to these high standards, as opposed to just everybody making it up as they go along. And that's the difference between the German model versus so many of the other apprenticeship, in quotes, out there.
Right, for sure.
Okay. I'm still not seeing questions from the audience, so you guys must have done a hell of a job answering all these questions before they even got raised. Thoughts you guys want to add in terms of going forward, particularly now as the automotives reopen? You know, there's been a big talk, at least in our network, about supply chain issues, you know, looking at where, you know, suppliers are coming from around the world. Automotive is a global supply chain, let's face it, but you have so much of the critical mass right there in Michigan. How does that go forward within the state safely, and also as we're getting ready to launch new models in the fall?
Yeah, I would say on that, as we look forward, that's where some of that work that we were talking about in terms of reshoring and onshoring, in terms of the investment in Detroit in particular, but really the state as a whole being a great opportunity as a location to bring automotive supply chain work with OEM plants across the state, and with you know, companies continuing to expand and invest in the assembly plants. It's no better time than now to continue to bring more of the supply chain to Michigan. And we also talked about the Peer Michigan Business Connect platform as a platform that we have shifted over the most recent months as a platform that has been focused on healthcare, PPE, and supplying the healthcare needs. I think as the automotive plants and the other manufacturers continue to scale back up, we'll continue to focus on that aspect in the coming weeks and months. But it's also a program that at its core boosts the supply chain by being really the premier matchmaking platform of any economic development platform in the state. It's a decade-old program that connects the supply chain to show just the depth of product that can be manufactured today right here in Michigan as well. And so that'll be a tool that will continue to evolve and expand as we move forward in terms of the supply chain. And continuing to invest in our talented workforce here in the state, whether it's through the MAP Squared program or other tools, continuing to invest in the workforce and ensuring that with that high concentration of engineers and a top 10 skilled trades workforce and incredible manufacturing talent that's in our heritage, we need to make sure we continue to have the best skilled employees and workforce that we can possibly have in the state, so that companies want to continue to invest in Michigan. And so it's really about building up the supply chain, continuing to support the talent and workforce, are two primary factors that we see that will help Michigan play a leading role in the recovery ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of things from my side, just to add real quick, and I'm trying to be cautious of time here. I think, you know, as an industry, we're not expecting a U-shaped recovery, right? When I read these papers and studies from different organizations that talk about the industry will be just a switch, you know, you turn it on and off and the economy is back. I don't think we're in that position, it will most likely be some type of V recovery, and we're probably looking anywhere between 12 to 18 to 20 months for full recovery from an industry perspective. So that's really going to be key. I think the suppliers from a tier 1 all the way down to a tier 3, a Mittelstand, they're facing severe issues, not just in terms of meeting their contractual obligations with their customers, but also to bring their workforce back safely. And the key to this will be what procedures are in place. How do we do this in a safe manner? And that can be seen if you just look at Michigan as a state by itself. Our unemployment rate was at 3.8%, right? And then if you look at the most recent number, it jumped to something like 20%. And so as these companies are looking to bring back people into the workforce, health and safety is going to be the #1 goal, I think. And the second piece is this continued investment in relationships. So if it's a company that has any type of issues, if it's a legal issue, a compliance issue, a regulatory issue, I would want the audience to know that both of our organizations are here to support them. If that's making the right introductions, a right connection to our networks, we're here to serve them. So they are our customers that we want to make sure that their needs are addressed going forward. So that would be my parting comment, and I know I'm 2 minutes over our time here, Mark, so apologies for that.
We're actually good on time, but thank you very much, Vlatko. Thank you, Josh, for joining us today. We will post this online so that your wisdom can filter out to the rest of the masses, and particularly the links in the presentation then are available, because I will say Michigan's online resources have been really at the top from the very beginning of our region in terms of what's been offered and the information available quickly, for anybody to access off the website. So the transparency has been great there. Thank you once again for partnership with MEDC. We look forward to obviously better times ahead, and I know you guys are going to work hard to make sure that happens. And anything we can do to support you, we're here to help, especially for supporting the companies that are doing their business.
For sure, we value the partnership. Thank you again, Mark, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see the ones coming up. Don't forget about the survey that's coming out to you, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.